Okay, so what you're going to be doing for this project is you're going to be doing the donation form. So we're also going to be learning how to deal with forms, which are a great way to think about UX design, because you're actually interacting with the user. You're actually creating an experience with them over time as they go through this process. So you're going to be creating a donation form, which is a really hard thing to do because it's a process where you're asking people for money and they're not getting anything back. So making it as easy as possible and really convincing them that they want to do this and making the design as pleasing as possible. That is your task. That is your job with this project. So I'm going to go over best practices for form design. So that's what we know works. And then I'll go into the code behind putting inputs in. And we'll talk more about the project in a little while. So let me share, let me project up here. Okay. Okay. So UX form best practices. Number one, be simple and straightforward. This is number one. There's a reason it's number one. 80% of people abandon a form after the beginning to fill it out. That's pretty bad. Every additional question reduces conversion rates by roughly 7%. Users will tolerate between 5 to 7 form fields. It's critical here. You really have to sit down and think, is every field necessary? Do you have to get the maximum, is it absolutely necessary? And this is really hard when dealing with clients because they always want lots of data about their users. So they're going to put all sorts of, any field they can think of into that form. And your job is to show them the research, talk to them about it, explain that the more they put in there, the less likely someone is to actually click that submit button, get all the way through and fill out the form. So if you don't need their address, don't ask for it. If it's just an online purchase, if you don't need a shipping address, don't ask for an address. Probably need their email. Usually need their email. There's a lot of things in there that you just don't want to put in there. Keep it as simple as possible. And one great example, I love this example. This is Creative Market. This is a screenshot from years ago. They since have redesigned how they do things. But I love the way Creative Market is this online shopping place where graphic designers can go to just buy little graphic design pieces like fonts and Photoshop brushes. And if you just need a vector piece of art, let's say you need some ornate decorative vector graphics or photographs or something like that, you can go on there and you can buy them and they're pretty cheap, maybe $6, $10, something like that. So here's a product page. This is a photo that you can buy. This is the checkout form. That's it. And it's right on the same page. So some good, great UX designer sat in a meeting and said, why do we have to click to another page and then enter all this information? And then click to another page to actually make the payment. We're just used to doing it. Everyone's just used to doing it. Do we really do it? What is that? What exactly is the minimum amount of information you you need to make a financial transaction. And this is perfectly valid. So you fill out the forms, you hit purchase, you download right away. And this is perfect for the situation because graphic designers are on a deadline and they just need that little something to just put in their design, and then you can keep on working. You don't have a lot of time to spend shopping through making parts and going through the process and all that. So I always thought this was, they don't do this anymore. I don't know why, but I just think it was brilliant. Use one column. Okay, this is something that's been studied. Users are able to complete a single column form at an average of 15.4 seconds faster than multi-column. It's just something that's been studied. So instead of going like doing two columns, people don't know if they're supposed to go side to side or if they're supposed to go down and then go over and then go down again. Same thing with labels. You want to make sure the label, every form, you know, if it's the text field where you put your name, you want it to have, say, first name, and you want to have that label really close to, you know, obviously you want them to go together, right? And actually the best practice is to put it on top of the field. That's something that's been studied too. It's less confusing. The eye just gets to go straight down the page instead of having to go back and forth like that. So something like this, you know, do this instead of this. Okay. Arrange form fields from easiest to hardest. So personal information, you want at the very end. You want them to be excited about what they're doing if they're purchasing something. Let them do all the shopping up front. And then at the very end, ask for the most important information. So they know exactly what they're getting by entering, let's say, their credit card or, you know, email or name or anything like that. You want to put that at the very end. You know, it would be really, would you like a website that asks you for your credit card information before you even did any shopping? No, right? Clearly title your form. This seems obvious, but I've had so many students turn in a form where it actually didn't say what the form does at the top. You know, I thought it was self-explanatory, but you do need to have a really clear title to your form so they understand what they're filling out. Don't ask for phone numbers. People really don't want to give phone numbers. So if you don't absolutely need it, you know, it's going back to the simplest solution is the best. Like if you're not sending someone confirmation texts or anything like that, don't ask them for a phone number. People are very hesitant. You'll lose a lot of people, 39% of people. So you can get their email instead. Design mobile forms differently. Obviously, right? It's a different experience when you're doing it on the screen. You need to make sure that the fields are big enough for a finger to touch them. Usually that's around 50 pixels minimum. You just need to make it easy as possible for mobile. So media queries are a must, and definitely the one column thing, absolutely, on a mobile phone. So just, and there's a whole set, another whole set of best practices when you design for mobile forms. Things like if you're asking for a number, have the number keypad pop up instead of the keyboard. You know, if you've ever had to enter your phone number, it sucks to have to go into the keyboard and go along that line. But if somebody was thinking ahead, you know, you can look it up. You can put some code in there that'll bring up the number pad instead of the keyboard. You know, things like that. That's really good user experience design. So here's another example of a bad decision. This progress bar up there, maybe it might work great on the desktop, having that on top to tell you where you are at in the process does not work on a phone. It's too small. The text is just way too small, and you don't have, that's bold. The shipping information is bold, but you can hardly tell. This is a much better solution. So on a media query, I would change it to this. You know exactly where you are, and you can still do the whole, progress countdown thing, but just in a different graphical location. Errors are really important, how you handle errors. One best practice is to display the errors as someone's going through. So if it's an email field and they fill it out wrong, tell them right away. Like if it doesn't have an @ sign, then it's not a valid email. So you can have an error pop up right away, like this isn't a valid email. Please, enter a valid email. And I don't expect you guys to know how to code this, but you need to know because as designers, probably going to be working on a team with web developers, and they do know how to do that, but they're not designers. They're not going to think about that. You're the one who's putting yourself in the user's perspective and thinking about these things. So you need to know about it and design for it so that they know to implement it. So this one is use positive error messages. You never want to blame the user for making a mistake. You want to be as friendly as possible in your language, how you handle it. So here's one. You could say, you didn't enter a name, kind of negative, versus please enter your name, if someone makes a mistake like that. So, never blame the user. Add progress bars. We looked at the progress bar on that mobile example. So you're giving them a sense of how many questions they're going to have to go through, where they're at in the process, how much time is it going to take to fill out the rest of. You've seen these before. It's very reassuring. It keeps people going. I hate it when I'm filling out a few surveys and all of a sudden I'm like 4 pages in and I'm like, what is this? I thought this was going to be fast. How much longer is it? And then I just give up. This is taking too long. So if I knew that it was only 2 more pages, I would have stuck with it. So here's an example. This one actually has like 2 progress bars and a step. I don't know, 2 progress bars is necessary, but they're really reinforcing that there. Enable the ability to tag to the next form field. This is just a nice way to get through forms that people do, but it's also an accessibility issue because there are people that can't use the mouse. So they really rely on the tab to get to navigate through websites. So it kind of happens automatically. You'll notice when we're putting this into HTML, you can tab automatically, but sometimes it's not necessarily in the order that you really want. So you can look it up and there's ways to control the path of the tab. So, and giving some sort of visual feedback as to what field you're in. So when you click inside of it, something visual happens. That's called the focus state. Kind of like a hover state, but it's a focus state. It changes when you interact with it. And then last, make your form beautiful. Because one of the components, an important component of UX design and usability is pleasure. You can make anything pleasurable to do. You can make taxes pleasurable to do. If you design it right, you have progress bars, you have, little rewards as you go along, like a counter counting up all the money that you're going to get back and things like that. You can make it pleasurable. So take the time to, invest the time to pick out legible fonts, really think about the size. You want it to be the spacing between the elements, the coloring, all of that styling that goes into it. You can really customize these things. So that's the last one. I don't think I have any more slides after that. So let's look at how this plays out in the code. In Canvas, so we're going to be working with some HTML tags that you haven't used before. So I'll just go through them now. I haven't done this in a while. I'm just like you, I forget this stuff, you know. The summer goes by and you come back to class and you're all of a sudden, I don't remember what an image tag, I don't remember when, and you have to look it up. I do that all the time. So I might totally mess this up because I haven't done it in like a year. But luckily there's help. It's called the internet. In Canvas, I put what did I put? Oh, web form resources right here. What am I saying? Web forms cheat sheet, and there's an article with best practices. So it's got a lot of stuff that I just put up there. But web forms cheat sheet, that's a good one. And it has all of the tags there and that you can use. So some of them, you know, you're not going to use all of these. Some of these have been replaced with, you know, JavaScript kind of stuff. So let's go over here. So the first tag we're going to go over is just a simple form tag. Oops. So nothing happens. It's really just a way for you to organize. We're gonna put a bunch of different fields and interactive elements in there. But you want to organize them into groups. Like this handles the, you know, billing information, and this handles some other choices. You know, break them up into sections. So you want to wrap them all in a form tag. And action right here. Don't worry about that so much. Some of the attributes you're going to see in these tags has more to do with JavaScript. And that's not our job right now. The web developer will deal with that. But I just want you to be familiar with them so that they're not, you know, you don't freak out when you see them. So there's two parts to making, let's say, a text field. You put the text field in, but you also need to label it somehow. So there's a tag called label. I'm gonna put the label in first. And then inside of here, you're gonna put the text that you want. And it comes out like that. It's like a P tag. And I'll explain this in just a second. And then input is the tag we're going to use for a lot of these elements. What? That didn't work. Input. There we go. So input type. Okay, automatically we get a text field. I think even if it didn't say text, we would still get a text field by default. There are a bunch of different types of inputs you can put in here. You can put password, and then whenever someone types, they'll just get those bullets, those dots. We can look over here into the cheat sheet, and these are all the input types: telephone numbers, time, week, range, file. You know, if you want to let someone upload a file, date. It shows a calendar picker. Accepts the URL, email, password. You can get a color picker if you want. Some of these defaults like color picker and date are pretty ugly, and it might be best to customize it, use a different type of input and customize it. So we're going to use text for this one. So there, and the other thing we want to give it is an ID. Very important to give it an ID, and we're going to call it name. So now over in the for up in the label, we're also going to give it name. So for is paired with ID. So now we know that this label goes with this input, and that can be really useful for the JavaScript, the other end of things. And then there's also one called, what is it called? Value, or there's more. Oh, name. It's the same word. Name. I don't exactly remember what name. I think it has to do with, it's like metadata that gets attached to whatever's inside of the, so it's a database thing. I usually just name it the same thing as the label, and I don't know if that's the best practice, but you can just leave it blank and leave it for like the web development team to fill in. So we've got a name and a field right there. So let's make another one. And this one, I'm going to say this is email. And I'll say email. And then here, the type is actually going to be email. And what that does is it looks for an @ sign inside of there. And if it doesn't get an @ sign, fires off an error, or when you submit, or it's specific to that type of information. So I'm just going to name all of these email. So there's email, and then password. I'm going to do password for this one. Okay, so we've got name, email, and password right there. So that's a good start. So with the password one, you can you type, you get those dots back to. You can also add placeholder text in there. So if I type placeholder equals your name, it's going to put, you've seen this before where it puts some like dummy text inside of there, but that doesn't actually go through as the value. So when you click and you start to type, you get to put in your own, you can't highlight that or anything. That can be a good UX practice, but one thing you don't want to do is have your placeholder text substitute for your label. You still want to label there, because what if somebody clicks inside of it and starts to type, and then they get distracted, and then they go back, they can't remember what that field is for. So that's why you don't want to do that. So what are some other interactive elements, form elements we can do? We can also do a text area. Again, it needs a name. One thing I want to do right now, you'll notice that all of these elements are inline elements, okay? Just like links are inline, images are inline, they're all next to each other. They're not block level elements. So one of the first things I might want to do is say label input text area, display box. Okay, now they're on top of each other. That's better. So, and then you can, you've seen these before. You can click and drag. You can determine columns and rows, so you can determine how wide or big or small you want that to be. So that's a text area. Let's go over. There's also button. We might want to submit button, and this does not work like a link tag. So so if you're wanting this to link to another page, like you're simulating a form, you would need to make it an an anchor tag, an A tag. But we can make buttons that way. Not found. Okay. Okay. Let's see what else. Radio buttons and check boxes. Now I gotta look those up. Input attributes. Here's all the attributes you can put into CSS selectors. Radio. Okay, here's the groups. Say we want to do a radio button group. I'm just going to copy and paste this in here. Copy. Where am I? I'm going to put these in another. Okay, so they're inside of a field set group. You don't necessarily have to have a field set group. That puts a label on the whole thing and wraps it, puts a border around it. Maybe this is best practice or maybe not. I'm actually not sure of that one. But you can always style it so that it looks different. But I think I've seen forms that don't have this, so they just use a form tag here, and that would work. So, so here we've got radio buttons, and the way that they know that they're a group, because one of them has to turn off when another one is clicked, instead of them all being able to turn on and turn off, is that they need to all have, well, they have a type of radio, but they need to have the same name. So if they have the same name, then they'll all be in the same group. And so if I remove that, you click that, and we can click that, and they both stay on, and that's not what we want, because they don't have the same name. Okay, so again, this is an input with a type of radio. It's got an ID and it's got a name and it's got a label, just like the ones above. Now I've already turned these into block elements, so I probably want to turn these back into inline. I'm not going to do that right now. Let's go back. Go away. Okay.
Things like the active pseudo selector still work.
No. I think, yeah, I think it works. I can't remember. Do you just put in the word active?
CSS active.
Active equals yes. There's a way, what he's talking about is there's a way where when it's loaded, one of them is already checked. It's already active.
Clicking an active pseudo selector for active CSS.
Oh. Yeah. I don't know. I've always sort of customized it, but maybe there is a way to do that. Oh, wait. I think it's checked, not active. Yeah, the word checked. If you add the word checked, it's one of them is already selected when the form loads. So we can do, I think I can just copy and paste this and put this down here and change. Change these to checkboxes. Check by making the type checkbox. Copy video checkbox. Okay, so now checkboxes, you can check as many as you want. You don't have just one option like a radio. You know why they're called radio buttons? Because in old vintage cars, that's how the radio works. You have all these buttons sticking out. Let me show you vintage car radio. It looked like this. So you have all these buttons sticking out and only one of them could be pressed at a single time. So if you press another one, the other one would pop out. That's why they're called radio buttons. Cool, huh? So, and then I would style these differently so that they look like, you know, so this is not the best practice here to have it on top. They should be next to each other. Again, in you know, usually in one column, you might be able to get away with multi-columns with these. I would still stick to the one column. It's just better for the flow with the eyes. So what I have for you right now is a little assignment. A little activity we're gonna do in class. So you're going to make a login form, a really simple, you know, login, just like name, username, email, submit, or something like that. Actually, it's another best practices is not to use the word submit. You should say something more descriptive, like, you know, log in or buy now, or something that's more like English, like what the action actually is. So you can have it say anything. And you do this in CodePen, and put those inputs in and just style it so it looks very unique. Like I said, make your forms beautiful. So I have an example of one that I did right there. Yours will look different, but I'm using web fonts. I'm specifying, you know, I got rid of the regular border on there and I just put a border on the bottom. There's my submit button. I can change it. I centered it. I did all of that. I made sure that I used the password type. And notice when I activate it, you know, when I click the side of it, the focus state changes. It turns to a red outline. So you want to do that to control the focus. And like I said, it's just like the hover state right here, input focus. Right there, it's input colon focus, and it's just like a hover state. Whatever you want to change about it, you enter there. Yeah. Go ahead and get started with a little while. Yeah. It's linked under in the assignments page. Yeah. Yeah, you can link right to this and look at the code. So, any questions? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Get to it. Uh-huh. you're looking at. There we go. There we go. That was it. Yeah.